The European Union's top diplomat insists that the US cannot seal any peace deal to end the war with Russian President Vladimir Putin without Ukraine or Europe being involved. According to Associated Press, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas on Monday also highlighted what she claimed was pro-Russian positions being taken up by the Trump administration. If you look at the messages that come from the United States, then it's clear that the Russian narrative is there very strongly represented, Kallas told reporters in Brussels, where she is chairing a meeting of EU foreign ministers. Kallas travels to Washington on Tuesday for talks with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Kallas rejected President Donald Trump's assertion that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky might be a dictator, saying that Putin hasn't had elections, or Russia hasn't had elections, in 25 years. Zelensky is elected leader, elected in a free and fair elections. And of course, during wartime, you can't have elections.
Good morning. We are discussing and hopefully can pass the 16th package of sanctions, which includes gaming consoles to Shadow Fleet, the different aspects. And then we have also put forward a new defense initiative to support Ukraine with ammunition capabilities in the short term, what they need. So I also expect this political discussion to be moved forward. Of course, we can't speak for President Trump, and these statements are quite interesting. I mean, a dictator. First, when I heard about this, then I was sure that he's making a mistake and mixing the two people, because Putin hasn't had elections, or Russia hasn't had elections in 25 years. Zelensky is elected leader, elected in free and fair elections, and of course during wartime you can't have elections. Many countries have in their constitutions points that you can't have elections. And why? Because in the elections you always, fight between each other, not in a situation where you have actually the outside enemy that you have to focus your strength. If to look at the messages that come from the United States, then it's clear that the Russian narrative is there very strongly represented. Thank you.
Hungary will be the one to decide whether Ukraine is able to achieve its hopes of joining the European Union in the future, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said Saturday in an escalation of his adversarial posture toward Hungary's war-ravaged neighbor. According to Associated Press, speaking at an annual State of the Nation address in Budapest to a closed circle of party members and supporters, Orbán described Ukraine as a buffer zone between Russia and NATO countries, and predicted that, following a cessation of Moscow's war, it would resume that role despite its ambitions to join the Western military alliance. He added that whether Ukraine can one day join the 27-member EU will be decided by the Hungarians. Unanimity is required among leaders of all EU countries for accepting new members. Orbán, considered the Kremlin's closest partner among EU leaders, has been the bloc's primary impediment in its efforts to assist Ukraine in the country's struggle to defend against Russia's full-scale invasion. He has frequently criticized, and threatened to veto, EU sanctions against Russia over its aggression, but has ultimately always voted for them. While Hungary, an EU and NATO member, has taken in Ukrainian refugees fleeing the conflict, it has also stood in the way of EU financial assistance to Kiev and pushed for deeper economic and energy cooperation with Moscow despite the war. Seeming to question Ukraine's statehood, Orbán said Saturday that the war Russia launched nearly 3 years ago was not even about Ukraine, but about the territory called Ukraine, which until now has been a buffer zone between NATO and Russia, being placed under the auspices of NATO. Ukraine, or what remains of it, will again become a buffer zone, Orbán said. It will not become a NATO member. Those comments mirrored recent statements by members of U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, who have suggested Ukraine should abandon its hopes of joining NATO as a guarantor of its future security against potential Russian attacks.
háború valójában nem is Ukrajnáról, hanem arról szól, hogy az Ukrajna nevű terület, ami eddig ütközőzóna, ütköző állam volt, a NATO és Oroszország között vonassék mostantól NATO felügyelet alá. Hogy miért gondolták az európai és amerikai liberálisok, hogy az oroszok ezt majd tétlenül nézik, máig rejtély. Az már világos, hogy a kísérlet elbukott, Ukrajna, illetve ami marad belőle, ismét ütköző zóna lesz. Nem lesz NATO tag. De lesz-e az Európai Unió tagja? Azt meg majd a magyarok eldöntik. Magyarország és a magyarok ellenében Ukrajna soha nem lesz az Európai Unió tagja. A kormány megbízottat küldünk az Egyesült Államokba, és begyűjtjük az összes Magyarországra vonatkozó adatot és bizonyítékot. Azután sürgősen megteremtjük az alkotmányos és jogi feltételeit annak, hogy ne kelljen tétlenül néznünk, amint álcivil közéleti szervezetek a szemünk láttára szolgálják ki a külföldi érdekeket, és szerveznek politikai akciókat. Azt javaslom, itt menjünk át ellentámadásba. Írjuk bele az alkotmányba, hogy az ember vagy férfi, vagy nő. És pont. Sőt, azt tanácsolom, hogy a Pride szervezői ne bajlódjanak az idei felvonulás előkészítésével. Kidobott pénz és idő.